Welcome to TriTech University. My name is Bill Steppen, and today we're going to check out ActiveE's Supplier Connections service. This allows you to access and download the catalogs and SKUs from participating suppliers in your industry. We're going to use the music industry in today's example, but the same process applies for any industry. Now, the most important thing to remember when we start exploring this is that what we're doing is we're simply connecting the dots between two separate but very similar databases. It's kind of like copying and pasting, but on a massive scale. I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. But if you have any questions, definitely let me know by using the question tool here in GoToWebinar. Let's go ahead and start exploring. So let's hop over into my copy of AIM here, my test copy. And to get started with this process, the first thing you would do is you would be going into your maintenance area and into ActiveE. And you would start by going into your ActiveE setup. Now, when you come into this ActiveE setup, you'd click on the e-commerce and API section. You would check mark this option up here where it says enable this service. And then you would come down here and you would check mark which industry you are in that you're going to be downloading. Once you do that, you might need to close and reopen your system. But then when you do that, if you go to the help and about AIM area, what you should see is over here in your ActiveE area, you should see a listing here for supplier connections, and that should be checkmarked. If you see that, you're good to go. If not, give us a call. There may be other things that we need to look at for your account or for your particular update. And by the way, another thing that I should stress is make sure you're on the latest update if at all possible, because this being a connected service is something that we're constantly working on and improving and updating with these things. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, once you've enabled your service, there's four key, what we call relations that you're going to be establishing: categories, attributes, manufacturers, and prices. Now, of all of these, the most important is categories. When we talk about categories, we're talking about inventory categories. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. When you click into category relations, basically what you're going to see when you first get started is an empty table. You're going to click up here where it says update via ActiveE, and that's going to download a list of categories from these suppliers. Now, right now, I'm looking at all data providers. I've pre-downloaded this list because the music industry is a pretty hefty one and it can take a few minutes to download. Now, when you come in here, you'll basically select which data provider you're going to look at and you'll click the refresh button. Right now, I'm looking at all data providers. The key thing here is you have your own set of inventory categories. If you're in the music industry, you probably have categories like band and orchestra and fretted instruments and percussion and keyboard, and you have various subcategories below that, trombone, trumpet, clarinet, et cetera, et cetera. The suppliers, they too have their own category structure, and we do not impose any restrictions on how they categorize their inventory, nor do we do the same thing for you. You're free to categorize your inventory however you want. The idea here is you're going to go down this list and you're going to find some categories that you want to download into your system. And the way that you do that is when you find a category that you'd like. Let's say, for example, this category here from Alfred, accordion books. So basically any books regarding accordion instruction are probably going to be in here. They have separate subcategories for book and CD Canada only, book and DVD, et cetera, et cetera. But let's say we wanted to pull this into our inventory. The way that we do that is by coming up here in the upper right corner, and we make a selection of the following four fields: vendor, category, subcategory, and type. So For example, this being Alfred Publishing as the data provider, I might buy that directly from Alfred. So as I start typing Alfred, there we go. We find an Alfred Publishing right there. Then this being a kind of a print type product, Alfred Publishing obviously is heavy in print. I'm going to go down and I'm going to basically find wherever I would want that to go into. Let's say this is going into my print. Let's say print instrumental, subcategory methods. Then the last thing I would choose is a type. I've got two choices, either accessories or serialized. Since books are not serialized, I'm going to select accessories. When I hit save on that, watch what happens with that line item. You'll notice that it turns from red to black. And that is your visual cue that you have mapped that category. And when we say mapped that category, that means when we get to the end goal of actually downloading product into our system, it will pull those line items in and allow us to see them for any categories that we've mapped. If you leave it red and basically leave it unmapped, it's going to ignore those categories. This gives you a lot of control in what you do or do not download. If you don't deal in accordion books at your music store, no need to map those categories. So basically the whole idea here is you just going through and mapping line items, and those line items of these categories may have one or two or several hundred or even maybe several thousand line items within them. It's all about just mapping here at the category level. Now what you can do is here in version 12, you can take advantage of some of these search fields up here at the top. For example, again, this being a music system, maybe you're looking for anything from any data provider regarding trombones. So up here in this contains box in the category column, I'm going to start typing in trombone, if I remember how to spell trombone. And there we go. We can see that we have a plethora of, again, method books here from Alfred. As I scroll down, I can see there are other suppliers here, Alry Publications, Briston Publications, and then further down, I'm going to get into some actual like instrumentation, I believe, once I get past all the print companies here. But yeah, you can kind of see how you can really drill down to some specific items. There we go, Conn-Selmer accessories, Conn-Selmer instruments. So that's where you can kind of really drill down and furthermore map those categories as you kind of set those up. Now that being said, actually, let's go back to that. Because what you might also say is, okay, well, given those Conn-Selmer instruments here, there are a lot of trombones here, and how do I have to map all those one at a time? And that is where this template comes in. So in the case of, let's say, all of these listings here for Bach and King and soloist, etc., what I could do is, let's say I want to get all of those potential SKUs and models into my system. I can use the template over here and fill out the template. Let's just go ahead and say, I think I've got Conn-Selmer in here. Is it just Selmer? There we go. And I'm going to put these into my band category, subcategory, trombone. These are all going to be serialized. And then what you can do is you can go down this list and you can check mark basically all of your line items that you want to map. So let's just do all the box here. And then ultimately, when you're done with all that, you'll click this update selected. Now you'll notice when I click this, it's going to say you have to remove your filters. So before you can click that, you'll just have to come back up here, remove that filter word up here in the category. Now they're still selected. If I scroll down to get all the way down to the Conn-Selmer listings, they're all the way down there, but they're still selected. I'll go ahead and click update selected. You might have seen it said updating 9 of 9. And now if I just redo that same thing here, I'll just click back into that contains box if it'll let me. There we go, trombone, B-O-N-E. And now if I get back down to Conn-Selmer, and there we go. You can see it's mapped all of those line items in one swoop without me having to do each line item individually. So Again, this is the most important step. This is basically telling the system what you want to download, who you buy it from, where it's going, and essentially what it is. Now, this is going to take some time. The whole idea of this is going to be a huge time saver in the long run. All of these SKUs in these categories have a lot of data in them. There's model numbers, there's barcodes, there's descriptions. In some cases, there's extended descriptions for web sales and links to images for listings online and so forth. So instead of you having to type all of that in manually or make those associations yourself and potentially have some human error when you're keying all that in, instead, you're just basically connecting the dots, like I said. So this is the most important of the 4 steps. If you don't map any categories, there's going to be nothing to download. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. We're going to keep moving right along, and we're going to take a look at the next couple of relations. Once you kind of move beyond your category relations, oh, and one final thing, you don't have to do your category relations all at one time. In fact, I recommend against that. You might do like what I'm just doing, kind of going in and grabbing in a kind of a chunk of categories at a time, focusing on certain types of inventory, certain sections of your store, and just kind of selecting and mapping categories here and there, building that database as you go. Let's take a look at the next relation process, which is going to be your attribute relations. As I've explained in a prior webinar, in version 12, you have the ability to customize your attributes. Now, again, I've already made this association here, but for those of you who maybe have come from version 11 or older, you might recognize some of these AIM attributes for color and size and things like that, artist, arranger, composer. These are fields that we used to just have as normal inventory fields, which we now call attributes, which are completely customizable. In the gun industry, firearms industry, for those of you who are here from that industry, you might see when you come to this step, attributes for caliber and gauging and barrel length and finish and capacity. If we're talking about, let's say, the appliance industry, you might have things like finishes and wattage and cubic feet and just kind of things like that. So just like you have your own attributes, the suppliers have their own attributes. And once again, you'll come in here, you'll click Update via ActiveE. That will download the supplier listing of attributes. From there, in most cases, you can click Auto Match Attributes, especially in the music industry, where it's almost a one-to-one relationship. Any attribute in your AIM system that has the exact same spelling as the ActiveE supplier attribute will get paired up here. For those that do not have a pairing, like this model year, if you already have a similar attribute for that, you can make a selection here, like for example, year, and then by hitting save on that, that will associate the AIM attribute with the ActiveE attribute. Now, again, these are information fields coming from the suppliers that you're pulling into your system. In the firearm industry, there are just a giant list of attributes, many of which you may not need. So this is extra information. If you feel you are not going to use this, this is technically an optional step. I highly encourage it because these are search terms that you can find really handy, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. Next thing we're going to look at is manufacturer relations. Just like attributes and just like categories, your suppliers have a list of manufacturers and you likely have a list of manufacturers. Once again, I have taken the liberty of pre-downloading and starting out on this list. So you can kind of see here in the column here for data provider manufacturer, what we're seeing are the manufacturer names, the brand names, if you will, coming from the data providers. And once again, you may find that you already have a lot of these listings. So if you, once you click this update data providers list, you can click auto match. That will go through and find any exact matches to manufacturers that you already have and pair them up, like you can see here with Alfred. Now, what this will not do is this will not find any near matches. So just like model year and year of the attributes that I was talking about just a few seconds ago, it's not going to find any near matches. So what you may also want to then do is do a search for, I'm just using Alfred as the example here. You can see as I start typing in Alfred, there are a couple of others here from Chesbrough and Hal Leonard and so forth that mention Alfred, but they're not the exact same spelling. If I plan on downloading product from these data providers and I would like to make sure that that manufacturer name comes in, I will likely want to map these line items. I don't want to leave them red, but I also don't have to use the same spelling that they do, Alfred Publishing or Warner/Alfred, and whatever it might be. I can simply go to the line item and then I can find my local listing here and then click save on that. And then when I download products from Chesbrough, if those products, according to Chesbrough, are manufactured by, quote, Alfred Publishing, they will come into my system simply as Alfred. And this allows you to keep your manufacturer list consolidated and concise. You don't wind up with a bunch of duplicate spellings. Now, if you do, if you were just going through this list and saying, you know what, I just want to grab all these and I'm just going to click auto create, which basically goes right down this list and creates them straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. If you do and you wind up with a bunch of duplicates, there is a utility that you can use after the fact. It's in your modules and inventory and utilities menu where you can go and you can change these manufacturers. You can select the old manufacturer. Say, for example, if I did that, there would be an Alfred Publishing listing here. I could make a selection with that. I could point it to the new manufacturer of Alfred, which consolidates those two listings. It cleans up those SKUs so that they're all pointing to the same manufacturer, and then it will delete that old manufacturer. So I just wanted to point that out here as well. That is 3 of 4 relations talked about. Now the final one is all about pricing. Now this is where this gets into a little bit of a gray zone for me. So I want to take a few extra minutes to talk about this versus how I just kind of blazed through attribute and manufacturers. When we talk about price relations, pricing is, well, it's a tricky thing, obviously. There are so many different prices and they're so dependent on the perspective of that price. For example, the suppliers themselves who you buy the product from, they would call the price that they sell to you, the resellers, their selling price, your wholesale cost. But they might have a cost coming from other publishers or brokers that they're buying that stock from if they're not the direct manufacturers themselves. So they might have a cost and then they turn around and sell it to you at their selling price. So cost is relative, sales price is relative. I mention all that because when we talk about what's available to calculate your pricing, you have the ability to use 1, 2, or potentially 3 different price points for determining your sales price. That's what this step is all about, calculating sales prices. Now those 3 price points are cost, your cost to buy that product from the supplier. There's suggested retail, which is the manufacturer's suggested retail price or list price in some cases. And there's also MAP, minimum advertised pricing. This is, it's not so much an industry standard, it's a growing term kind of across the retail industry as a whole, but it's not something that where every item in the retail world is mandated to have a MAP. And I'm not a legal person or anything like that. My understanding of it essentially is that you can't really advertise that you're selling below a certain MAP price point. You could certainly sell below it, you just can't advertise below it. If you've ever gone onto a website and like an electronics website and it says see price in cart instead of just listing the price, they're probably selling below MAP, but that's neither here nor there. Now, as far as those 3 price points, you can certainly calculate and sell your product for whatever you feel is a fair price for your region and demographic. But in order to calculate that, we need to go off of one of those potentially 3 existing price points. You can't just say I want to, sell everything for 50 bucks or whatever it might be, because everything has variable pricing. Now, what you can do is to see who provides what. You can click on a link up here. This one will be the music data pricing, obviously. There would be other links up here for gun data pricing, vacuum data pricing, golf data pricing, bike and fitness data pricing, whatever your industry is. I'll go ahead and click on this. And what we'll see here is a listing of the ActiveE music data providers. So here are all the data providers. And then over here, we'll see who provides what. So there's 3 columns for cost, retail, and map. If there's an X in that column, then that provider provides that price point. So for example, Diodario, they only provide retail, as does Alfred. So when I'm calculating pricing from Alfred, I can use retail, but they don't provide me a direct cost, nor do they provide me a map. Others, like let's say, let's find a more recent example here. Let's say Fender Instruments. Fender provides all 3. They provide cost, retail, and map pricing. Again, I want to throw just a little asterisk next to this map column, because just because an X is in that column doesn't necessarily mean every product in their database that they're providing has an established map. So let's talk about that now back here in AIM. I've got a few examples set up for Diodario and Company. Now, I've got 3 examples here. The way you would set this up is you would click the Add button, and you would essentially fill in this left-hand side with your filter information. As you download SKUs into your system, it's going to look here at this price relation table and find which particular price relation is the most appropriate formula for calculating your selling price. So you would, at a minimum, select a data provider. Let's go ahead and select Alfred as our data provider. Now, if we don't care who the publication house is or who the manufacturer is, we can leave that blank. Likewise, if we don't necessarily care what category the item is going into, we can leave category or subcategory blank. We basically have a filter all the way down to SKU levels, price ranges, and things like that. So if we wanted to calculate certain method books at a different price versus others, we could make those selections here and just set up multiple data prices. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail when I get back up to my Diodario examples. But this being the music industry, and in most cases, I know for all of our music store listeners here in the audience, when it comes to print music, you pretty much just sell whatever the list price is right on the front of the book. So that makes it very easy. We can come over here to the right-hand side where we see a box labeled level 1. Now, if we know our general cost, remember Alfred doesn't provide cost, but if we know our general cost as being, let's say, 60% of retail, we can calculate that. We could say that our cost that we're going to pull in is going to be a percent of retail, and we can make that be 60%. If the supplier provides cost, you can leave this blank, and the cost will just come in straight from the supplier. Likewise, everyone provides retail. So in most cases, you don't have to calculate retail unless for some strange reason you're using retail, the retail price field, for a completely different purpose other than retail. You can leave this line item blank as well. In my case, I'm going to leave cost as percent of retail at 60%. Of all of these fields, though, the most important one is our price. You can see there are 4 options here: margin percentage and markup percentage. That would go off of the cost, percent of map, and percent of retail. Now, I want my selling price to be the same as the retail price. So I'm going to make our price be 100% of retail. And when I save that, that creates a listing here for Alfred where it says that pretty much anything coming from Alfred, regardless of manufacturer, regardless of category, regardless of price range, is going to have its cost calculated to 60% of retail and the R price be 100% of retail. So if the retail price is $10, my cost is $6, and I'm going to sell it for $10. That's basically how that works. If you have multiple data prices established for the same data provider, and I'll use Diodario here as my example. So let's say for the majority of the products that I buy from Diodario, I want our price to be 90% of retail. If you might recall again, Diodario does not provide cost, they do not provide MAP, they only provide retail. I'm calculating my cost to be 55% of retail, and I want my selling price to be slightly below retail. So I'm calculating it to 90%. But let's say I want to have a different formula for anything going into my band and orchestra accessory categories. So I can add a second price relation that does just that. It's the same data provider, but it's going to be picking a category now. I want to charge a little bit of a premium on my band and orchestra accessories. So I do so. I calculate anything going into that category at a 95% of retail as our price. So if it's not going into the band and orchestra accessory category, it will use this formula. And if it is, it's going to use this formula. Furthermore, I want to charge an even higher premium on anything in that band and orchestra accessory category that's manufactured directly by Diodario. So I do just that. I add a third listing here that says if the data provider is Diodario, it's going into the category of band and orchestra, and the manufacturer is Diodario. I'm calculating the percent of retail, or the hour price, to be a 96% of retail. And that's exactly what that would do. So again, hopefully that makes sense. I talked about MAP. If one of these data providers selected MAP or provided MAP and you wanted to calculate MAP off of that, but not every product manufactured by Diodario that's in your band and orchestra accessories category is gonna have a MAP. Let's say that of the hypothetical 10 items that are in there, 6 of them have MAP, 4 of them do not. If I left this as is, those 6 would get a price and our price. The other 4, because 96% of 0 is 0, they would not have a calculated R price. So what I could do is I could say, I want to have a backup calculator. That's what level 2 is. It's a backup calculator to level 1. I simply come down here, I point to level 2. Everything I left in level 1 is still there, but now on level 2, I could say alternatively, I want our price to be 96% of retail. So at level 1, if the MAP is available, it'll calculate it to be 96% of MAP. And if it's not available, it'll calculate the hour price to be 96% of retail. There's a third level where you basically have a backup to level 2, but that's basically how that works. Now, this all wraps up after you've done all of that setup. Basically, this culminates in going into your modules menu, into Active E, and into the utility called Update AIM Inventory. When you come in here, this will, again, normally be a blank list. I've taken the liberty of downloading this ahead of time, but anything that you pull in by clicking this Get Inventory button, and then from there, you can either make a selection of a specific data provider and then ultimately click the Get Inventory button again. That will download the data from whichever data provider you select over here. If you make no selection, let's just exit out of that and kind of go back into that. If you make no selection, it'll download from all of them. But what you'll see here is a color-coded list of SKUs. Anything yellow is brand new. It has no matching existing AIM SKU or description. Anything that is green, I don't know if I have any, there's a few, those have found some matches. And what it would want to do is it would want to fill in any missing info from the existing SKU into that record. So you can see this item here has a description of 3-pack acoustic guitar. The original description is this Diodario EJ26 phosphor bronze. It won't override that unless I tell it to, but it will pull in all of this other information. It'll recalculate the prices. It'll add any other detail to that record when I hit update. For all the other items, all those yellow items, basically the whole idea here is to kind of spot check, make sure that these items are going where I want them to go, that they're coming in with the right manufacturer, that the prices are coming up correct, basically checking all of those relations that we just established. And ultimately, when you click update or update all, it puts all those new records or updated records into your inventory. And then at that point, the inventory is there and it's ready for you to start scanning and receiving at point of sale, on your purchase orders, and all of those wonderful fun things. So that is the whole idea of the supplier connections. That's usually what most stores will use this for, is to download and update SKUs. So again, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing a lot of data entry, which is effectively pointless when this service is available to you. There are other possibilities with this. You have the ability to do custom suppliers if you can get the electronic data from third-party suppliers that aren't on our list, that don't provide us that data. There's also the ability to submit purchase orders to a lot of these suppliers so that you don't have to fax or email or otherwise contact the supplier with your orders. You can essentially submit those POs directly into their computer system so that way the vendors don't have to turn around and key it into their computer. They see it pop up that says, oh, I've got an order from the music store. Right, let's just go ahead and pick that order and get it shipped out. So there are other services that revolve around the supplier connection service, but this is the main one. If there are any questions, definitely reach out to us. All of this is documented in our AIM online help, so you can check that out as well. And I'll be doing additional webinars on some of these other Active services as we go. But for now, that's all the time that we have. Again, I appreciate your time and your attention, and I look forward to seeing you next week when we will be talking about the purchase orders process, just kind of in general. And then we'll be seeing you next month into, wow, April already, for the continuing AIM V12 webinar series. So thank you very much, everyone, and we will see you around the bend. Take care.